The senior chief shoved the rifle case off the briefing table. It never hit the floor. Ethan Carter caught it one-handed 6 inches from the concrete without turning his head, without looking, still reading the mission board on the far wall, like nothing had happened. 31 Navy SEALs stopped laughing at the exact same second. "You want to try that again?" Ethan said. "Or you want to hear why command woke me up at midnight?" They'd called him a single dad with a museum piece, a clerical error in a Carhartt jacket. They had no idea whose name was cut into the steel inside that case, or why 4 years of his life had been erased from every record the Pentagon admits to. Comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story travels tonight. And if you believe respect is earned and never given, subscribe. Senior Chief Ray Vance looked at his own hand like it had betrayed him. "How'd you do that?" "Do what?" Ethan said. "You weren't looking." "I was listening." Ethan set the case back on the table, squared it, and finally turned around. "You leaned in before you pushed. Your chair moved. Everybody in this room heard it. I'm just the only one who did anything about it." Somebody at the back of the hangar said, "Oh!" Vance smiled with his mouth. Okay, Pops." "Ethan?" "What?" "My name's Ethan." "Sure it is," Vance said, and turned to the room with his arms spread, playing to the crowd, because that was what he was good at. "Gentlemen, Command has heard our request for support, and Command has sent us a retired Ranger with a Barrett that predates cell phones." The laugh came back. 31 of the most lethal men on the planet laughing like high school kids. "How old's that thing?" Pop's serious question. 1991. 1991. "It's older than 4 of you," Ethan said. "I checked the roster." The laughter stumbled, only half a beat. But it stumbled. 42 hours earlier. The phone rang at 11:47 at night. Nobody calls a widower in Bozeman, Montana at 11:47 at night to sell him anything. Ethan let it ring twice, not because he was afraid, but because his daughter was asleep down the hall and a third ring would carry. He picked it up on the second. "Carter." "Sergeant First Class Ethan Carter. It's just Ethan. Been just Ethan for 4 years." "Sir, stand by for Colonel Raymond Hale." Ethan closed his eyes. There are names a man buries, and there are names that dig themselves back out. A click, then a voice like a gravel road. "Ethan." "Ray." "Don't Ray me. I've called this number 11 times in 2 years. And I didn't answer it 11 times. That's a pattern, Ray. Detectives call that a clue. Somebody's funny at midnight. Somebody's tired. Somebody's about to be awake." Hale exhaled. 6 months ago, a JSOC element went into a valley in Kunar. 4 Americans didn't come home. We know who did it. We know where he sleeps. In 72 hours he moves and we lose him for another 6 years. Then send Team 6. They're on the mountain right now. So you don't need me. They've missed him twice. Ethan opened his eyes. "Twice," Hale said, "because the shot is 2,400 meters across a valley that changes wind 3 times a minute inside a 90-second window. There are 4 men alive who've made that shot under those conditions. Ray, 3 of them are dead." Silence on the line. "And the 4th one," Hale said, "is standing in his kitchen in Montana telling me no." Ethan looked down the hallway. A nightlight shaped like a horse. A door with a hand-drawn sign taped to it. "Lily's room," Dad allowed. He'd allowed himself exactly one thing in 4 years. That sign. "I've got a daughter." "I know. She's 7. Her birthday's in 11 days. Her mother's been gone 4 years and she still sets the table for 4 people when she's tired and forgets." "I know, Ethan." "Then you know the answer." Hale went quiet. And when he came back, it wasn't a colonel talking anymore. It was the man who had carried Ethan's father's casket down a church step in the rain. 31 men on that mountain, Hale said. 19 of them have kids. I've got the roster in front of me. You want the ages? Don't. Youngest is 4 months old. Kid's never met his father. That's Petty Officer Don't Ray. C-17, Bozeman, 0400. A pause. There's a car outside your house. Ethan walked to the window and moved the curtain 2 inches. Black sedan. Lights off. Engine running. You sent a car before I said yes. Son, Hale said quietly. I sent a car because I already knew. The line went dead. He didn't pack first. He stood at the counter and wrote 11 days of instructions on the back of a grocery list because it was the only paper there, and he wasn't going to waste 90 seconds looking for better. Monday dance at 4:30. She'll say she doesn't want to go. She wants to go. No red dye. She'll tell you she's fine. She's not. She reads to the dog when she's sad. Don't interrupt. Let her finish the chapter. If she asks where I am working, don't say over there. She knows what it means. I don't know how. She knows. The knock came at 12:40. Margaret Doyle stood on the porch in a coat thrown over a nightgown 70 years old, gray braid, car keys clenched in her fist like a weapon. Whose funeral? She said. Nobody's. Yet. Ethan Carter. 11 days, 12 outside. Her birthday is in 11 days. I know when my daughter's birthday is, Margaret. Do you? She looked at him the way only a woman who has buried a husband from Vietnam and a son from Iraq can look at a man. Because I have watched you build a whole life out of not going. 4 years. You mow the lawn. You go to the dance recitals. You sit in that truck outside the school 20 minutes early every single day, like the building might catch fire. Margaret. And then a phone rings once and you're gone. They've missed him twice, Ethan said. Margaret stopped. Because she'd been an army wife for 31 years, and she knew exactly what that sentence meant, and exactly what it cost, and exactly why there was no arguing with it. Then you'd better be home in 10, she said, and walked past him into the house like she owned it. He went down the hall. Lily was asleep on her side, one arm hanging off the mattress, mouth open. The dog had stolen 2/3 of the bed and had no regrets. Ethan crouched. He didn't wake her. He had a rule. Hey, Bug, he whispered anyway. Nothing. I gotta go do a thing. Nothing. I'll be home. That's not a maybe, that's a... His voice caught on something, and he waited for it to pass. That's a promise. He kissed her forehead, and she said, without opening her eyes, in the flat, drugged voice of a 7-year-old 3/4 under, Are you gonna miss my birthday? Ethan stopped breathing. No. Dad. I said no. Mom said no too. He stayed on his knees in the dark a long time after she went back under. Then he stood, went to the closet, and took down a case he hadn't opened in 4 years. The C-17 was cold and loud and full of men who didn't know him. He slept 6 of the 11 hours, which told the crew chief everything. Nobody sleeps on a bird going that direction. Nobody except men who've done it enough times that the fear got bored and went home. Somewhere over the Atlantic, he woke, pulled a small green notebook from his chest pocket, and started writing. The crew chief, 24 years old, lasted 20 minutes. Sir, writing home. Math. Math. Wind. You can do wind on a phone now, sir. There's an app. Ethan turned a page. The paper had gone soft at the corners, the way money goes soft. Thousands of lines. 2 different handwritings. One older, slanted, pressed hard enough to dent the page. An app tells you what the wind's doing where you are, Ethan said. Right. The shot doesn't happen where you are. Sir. The shot happens where the bullet is. 3 seconds from now, 900 meters that way. He finally looked up. The app doesn't live there. I do. The kid didn't have anything for that. He went and told 2 other guys about it, though. The forward operating base didn't have a name. It had a number, and the number was classified, which is a particular kind of joke to a man who'd spent a career in places that didn't officially exist. Ethan came off the ramp into heat, like a hand on his face. 1 duffel. 1 long case. A lieutenant met him with a tablet and a jog. Sergeant Carter. Carter's fine. Sir, I'm supposed to escort you. Briefing's already started. Then we should walk faster. The lieutenant hurried to keep up, which annoyed him because he was 26 and ran marathons, and this guy was 38 and had a limp. Sir, can I ask something? You're going to. The roster says Ranger, retired, and the guys are saying... He stopped himself. Say it. They're saying you're a single dad from Montana. Ethan kept walking. That's true. That's it. That's the best part of it. They reached the door. Ethan could already hear them through the steel. Sir, the lieutenant said, they're going to be rough on you. I know. You want me to say something? No. Why not? Ethan put his hand on the door. Because in about 9 minutes, they're going to do it for me. Which brings us back to a rifle case 6 inches off a concrete floor and 31 men who had just stopped laughing. All right. Vance held up both hands, still grinning, playing it off. Good catch, Pops. Real good. Reflexes on you. You do a lot of catching. Catch a lot of what? Dodgeballs, juice boxes. Cereal bowls mostly. Cereal bowls. She's 7. She's a spiller. The room howled and Vance turned to soak it in, and that was his mistake, because he thought the laugh was at Ethan, and about 4 men in that hangar had already started to suspect it wasn't. Petty Officer Kevin Doyle wasn't laughing. Doyle was 29. Boyish, still had all his hair and most of his optimism, and he was the best pure shooter in the room, and everybody knew it. He was staring at the case, head slightly tilted. The way a man looks at a face he can't quite place. Senior Chief, Doyle said quietly. Not now, Kev, I'm working. Senior Chief? What is this? The voice came from the doorway, and 31 men came off their chairs like the floor had gone electric. Rear Admiral Marcus Rennick, 2 stars, 29 years, a face like a closed door. He got 3 steps in and stopped dead when he saw Ethan. The jacket, the dust, the limp, the case. He turned to the lieutenant. Who is this man? Sir, this is... I'm asking him. Rennick turned. Who are you? Ethan Carter. Rank? None. Not anymore. Then why are you standing in my briefing room? Because Colonel Hale called me at midnight and told me 31 of your men were going to die on a mountain. The hangar went silent so fast, it hurt. Rennick's jaw moved once. Say that again. You heard it fine, sir. You want to explain to me, Rennick said, walking slowly down the length of the table, how a retired sergeant, an army sergeant, thinks he's going to do something my people can't. I have 4 Tier 1 shooters in this room, 200 plus confirmed between them. One of them holds a NATO record. Which one? Rennick stopped walking. Excuse me, which one holds the record? Doyle raised his hand about 6 inches. That'd be me, sir. Ethan nodded at him. No mockery in it at all. Congratulations. Range, 2,140 meters. Wind, 9 to 12. Full value. A pause. Half. Uphill or down? Level. Window. Doyle's mouth opened, closed. There wasn't one. He was static. I had 11 minutes. Ethan turned back to the Admiral. 2,140. Half value. Level. 11 minutes. He said it flat like a man reading a receipt. That's a hell of a shot. That's a career. That's a plaque on a wall. Then, the shot you're asking for is 2,400 full-value wind swinging through 3 thermals, 400 meters of drop, and 90 seconds. And you've made that shot. No, Ethan said. The room shifted. Vance laughed out loud. Then what the hell are you doing here? I've made a worse one, Ethan said. Twice. Oh, this is good. Vance was up now, hands wide, delighted. Where'd you make it, Pops? Because I've been in every unit in this country that does that kind of work, and I have never heard your name in my life. That's right? What's that supposed to mean, that's right? It means you've never heard my name. Vance's grin thinned by a millimeter. You know what I think. I think somebody in a basement in Virginia panicked, pulled a file, saw numbers they liked, and shipped us a guy who spent 4 years making pancakes. Somebody snickered. Vance leaned across the table. That's the word in the chow hall, by the way. You want to know what they're calling you? They're saying the Pentagon sent us a single dad. And there it was. out loud, in front of everybody. Ethan looked at him for a long moment. "That's correct," he said. "That's correct. Her name's Lily, she's 7. Her birthday's in 11 days. Ethan's voice didn't move a hair. "You want to make a joke about her, now's the time. Because after this, you're going to want to be very careful with your mouth around me." Nobody moved. Vance stared at him, and for half a second, something behind the senior chief's eyes did a calculation it did not like. Because there is a specific stillness certain men carry. It doesn't look like anger, it looks like patience. And every operator in that hangar had been trained at enormous public expense to recognize exactly that. Vance sat down. He'd tell himself later it was because the Admiral was watching. It wasn't. "Enough," Rennick snapped. "Carter, you have 2 minutes to justify your existence in my briefing. Then I put you on a plane." "I don't need 2. "Then use 1. Ethan reached into his jacket and took out the green notebook. Rennick stared. "That's it, a notebook. Sir, with respect, you've got 4 shooters, and they've missed him twice. Careful. You want careful, or you want him dead." A young operator at the back made a small involuntary noise, like a man watching a car crash. Ethan opened the notebook and laid it flat. "Your problem isn't your shooters. Your shooters are better than I was at their age. Your problem is the valley." "Explain." "North wall. Between 0500 and 0620, the sun hits the east face about 40 minutes before it reaches the floor. Rock warms. Air lifts. You get a thermal column running up the face at 4 to 6 meters a second." He looked up. "Your round doesn't fly through wind, sir. It flies through an elevator." Doyle sat forward. "Then around 5:55, the floor warms enough to break the column. It collapses. And when it collapses, the wind doesn't slow down." "It reverses," Doyle said quietly. Ethan pointed at him. "It reverses." "That's not possible," someone said. "It's not only possible, it's scheduled. It happens every clear morning of the year within 11 minutes of the same time." He turned a page. Another. 0553, 0557, 0551, 0604. That one was cloud cover. 0555, 0558, 0556. He kept turning. The paper kept going. "How many days is that?" Rennick said. 206. The Admiral's throat moved. "You've been watching this valley," he said slowly, "for 206 days. "No, sir. I watched it for 81. "Then who watched it for the other 125? Ethan didn't answer. He turned to the front of the notebook instead, where the handwriting changed. Older, slanted, pressed so hard into the paper you could read it with your thumb in the dark. He set it down and stepped back. "Sir." Doyle stood up so fast his chair went over backward and clanged off the concrete. "Sir." "What?" "The rifle." "What about it?" Doyle wasn't looking at the notebook anymore. He was looking at the case, and his face had gone the color of paper. "Sir, can you open it? Please, can you open the case?" Doyle, sit down. "Please, sir." Something in the kid's voice stopped even Rennick. Ethan looked at Doyle a long moment. Then he unlatched the case. Click, click. He lifted the lid. The Barrett inside was not pretty. The finish was worn through to bare steel along the left side of the receiver, polished down by 1,000 days of a man's forearm. The stock had been repaired once badly with epoxy that didn't match. It didn't look like a trophy. It looked like a tool somebody had used every day of a long life. Doyle came around the table like a man walking toward a cliff edge. He bent. He read the serial number. He read it again. And then, Petty Officer First Class Kevin Doyle, NATO record holder, best shooter in that hangar, and everyone knew it straightened up, took one full step backward, and came to attention so hard his boots cracked on the floor. "What are you doing?" Vance said. Doyle didn't answer. "Doyle? Doyle? What the hell are you? Senior Chief?" Doyle's voice was shaking. "Get up." "What? Get up. Somebody. Rennick said very slowly, is going to tell me what is happening in my briefing room, right now. Doyle swallowed. Sir, that serial number. He had to stop and start again. Sir, there's a rifle in a case at the sniper school, behind glass. There's a plaque under it. Every man who goes through that course stands in front of it on day one and reads it out loud. His eyes were wet, and he didn't seem to know it. The plaque says the weapon was retired. It says it was retired because the man who carried it... He couldn't finish. Vance stood up, slow, staring at the receiver now too. That's not the same weapon, he said. That rifle's in Georgia. I've seen it. I've stood in front of it. 18 years ago, I stood right there. You stood in front of a display, Doyle said. You stood in front of a replica senior chief. That's a lie. They put a replica in the case. Doyle turned and looked at Ethan, and his voice broke clean in half. Because the family kept the real one. Nobody made a sound. Rennick came down the length of that table, and he was not moving like an admiral anymore. He was moving like a man in a museum at closing time alone. He bent over the receiver. He read the number, and Ethan watched 29 years of certainty drain out of a man's face in real time. Major Daniel Carter, Rennick whispered. Ethan said nothing. Major Daniel Carter. The admiral looked up. 1,104 days in country, the Kunar Valley, 2,380 meters, in a snowstorm, to save a downed aircrew that was already being written off, and nobody has ever repeated it. He stopped, because his own mouth had just said the name twice and the second time he'd heard it. Carter, Rennick said. 31 men turned as one and looked at Ethan. Carter. The admiral's voice had gone almost gentle, which from a man built like that was the most frightening thing that had happened all day. Son, who are you? Ethan reached down and closed the notebook. The one with 2 handwritings in it. The one where a father had filled 125 pages and then stopped mid-sentence on a Tuesday in November, and a 19-year-old kid had picked up the same pen on the same line and kept going for 81 more. He was my father, Ethan said. Somebody behind him said, "Oh my God." He handed me this rifle when I was 17. He told me it wasn't a gift. Ethan put his hand flat on the case. He said it was a loan. Said I had to give it back to him someday, so I'd better bring it home in one piece. He looked up. He died 8 months later. Nobody breathed. So I've been carrying it 19 years, Ethan said, because I never got to give it back. Vance sat down. He didn't decide to. His legs just stopped participating. Every joke he'd made in the last 11 minutes was still hanging in the air of that hangar, and there was nowhere for any of them to go, and they were all going to be there for a very long time. Doyle hadn't moved, still at attention, chin up, eyes wet. Doyle, Ethan said quietly. At ease. No, sir. Son. No, sir. The kid's jaw was locked. My dad went through that course in '98. He read that plaque out loud on day 1. He came home and told my mother about it before he told her about me. Ethan looked at him for a second. What's your first name? Kevin, sir. Kevin. Ethan nodded once. At ease. Doyle's shoulders came down about an inch. Rennick straightened up, slowly. Mr. Carter, he said, and it wasn't Sergeant, and it wasn't son. I owe you an apology. No, sir, you don't. I judged you by your rank, your jacket, your limp. The Admiral's mouth twisted. And by the fact that you're a single dad. You did, Ethan agreed, and I was wrong. You weren't wrong because you underestimated me, sir. Ethan looked around that hangar at Vance at Doyle at 31 of the most dangerous men on the face of the earth, not one of whom would meet his eyes. You were wrong because you stopped looking after the first impression. He put the notebook back in his chest pocket, over his heart, where it had lived for 19 years. Now. He pulled the case toward him and closed the lid. Show me the extraction route. Because I read your plan on the plane, and if you run it the way it's written, You're going to lose 4 men in the wadi at the 2-kilometer mark, and I'd like to not do that. Rennick blinked. Say that again. Your extraction route is wrong. That route was built by... I know who built it. He's very good. Ethan pulled out a chair finally for the first time since he'd walked in. He's just never been in that wadi at 0600 when the shadow line moves. And you have. Ethan sat down. Twice, he said. Rennick stared at him for a long, long moment. Then he turned to the room. Everybody sit, Rear Admiral Marcus Rennick said. Doyle, get the map up. Vance? Vance stood. Get Mr. Carter some coffee. The senior chief's face went through 4 separate colors. Sir. Now Senior Chief. Nobody laughed, and not one man in that hangar ever laughed at Ethan Carter again. Coffee arrived in a paper cup, and Senior Chief Ray Vance set it down in front of Ethan Carter without a word, and the sound that cup made on the table was the loudest thing in the hangar. Thank you, Ethan said. Vance didn't answer. He walked back to his chair, folded his arms, and stared at the far wall like he was memorizing it. Doyle, Rennick said. Map. The screen came up. Kunar Valley North Wall, a green line snaking down through it like a vein. That's the plan as written, Rennick said. Insert here, hold here, assault at 0540. Extract along this route to the pickup at the 2-kilometer mark. That route was designed by a man with 22 years in this valley and a wall full of paper that says he's right. He turned. Tell me why he's wrong. Ethan didn't get up. He just pointed with 2 fingers from his chair. There, the wadi. That's a covered route. It's covered at noon. The room went quiet in a different way than before. This was the quiet of professionals hearing a word they didn't like. Say more, Rennick said. At 0600 the sun clears that ridge and the shadow line walks across the wadi floor east to west. Takes about 4 minutes. For those 4 minutes your men are in shadow and the north bank is in light and everything's fine. At 0604 it flips. Now your men are lit and the north bank is dark. Ethan finally looked up. You will be looking into a black wall with the sun on your faces, and there are 3 positions on that bank where a man with a machine gun and a folding chair could hold you for a very long time. A folding chair, somebody said. He won't need to stand up, Ethan said. Nobody laughed. Rennick's eyes moved across the screen. Doyle, overlay the sun angle. Working, sir? 20 seconds. It felt like 4 minutes. The overlay came up. Doyle stared at it. Then he said quietly, Oh, that's ugly. How ugly? Rennick said. Sir, at 0604, he's got 180 meters of open floor lit like a stage. Doyle turned around. And the far bank goes black. He's right. He's exactly right to the minute. To the minute, Rennick repeated. It's not a guess, Ethan said. It's a clock. Same sun, same rock. It's been doing that every clear morning since before any of us were born. Vance spoke without unfolding his arms. Then why hasn't anybody caught it? Because nobody's ever been in that wadi at 0600 and lived long enough to write it down, Ethan said. That landed on the room like a dropped plate. Vance turned his head slowly. What did you just say? You heard me. No, say it again. Ray, Rennick said. No, sir. I want him to say it again. Vance stood. Because 6 months ago 4 Americans died in that valley, and one of them was a friend of mine. And if this man is standing in my briefing room telling me he knew, I didn't know, Ethan said. Then what are you telling me? I'm telling you, somebody wrote it down. Ethan's voice didn't rise. It just got flatter, and somehow that was worse. In a notebook. In November of 2004. And that notebook has been in a closet in Montana for 19 years because nobody ever asked for it. The hangar was so quiet you could hear the generator outside. Vance sat down. He didn't look at anybody. 0912. Local time. Rennick put both hands on the table. Doyle. Reroute. Give me a line that keeps my people out of that wadi between 0550 and 0620. Sir, there isn't one. That's the only defilade on the whole. Then find me one that isn't. There's the ridge, Ethan said. Doyle's head came up. That's exposed. For 11 minutes. That's 11 minutes of skyline, sir. It's 11 minutes of skyline in the dark against a black ridge with a man at 2,400 meters watching every approach to it. Ethan took a sip of the coffee, which was terrible, and set it down. Or it's 4 minutes of a lit stage with a folding chair and a machine gun. You've got two bad options. I'm telling you which one is less bad. And if you're wrong, Vance said to the table, then 31 men are on a ridge with no cover, Ethan said, and I'm the reason. He said it without any drama at all, like a man reading a weather report. That was the part that got them. Rennick looked at him for a long moment. Reroute to the ridge, the Admiral said. Doyle work it. Vance casualty plan for the ridge line. I want it in 90 minutes. Chairs scraped. Men moved. And nobody in all that noise said one word about a single dad. 0940. Rennick's office was a shipping container with a desk in it and a photograph of a woman on the wall. He shut the door. Sit. I'm all right, sir. That wasn't hospitality. Sit down. Ethan sat. Rennick didn't. He stood behind the desk with a folder in his hand, and he stared at Ethan for a while before he opened it. I pulled your file on the way over here, he said. All right. Do you know what's in it? No, sir. Neither do I. Ethan didn't react. Rennick opened the folder and turned it around so Ethan could see. 12 pages. Basic training, Ranger School, 2 deployments, awards, and then starting in 2011, 4 consecutive pages that were nothing but a header, a date range, and a black bar. I'm a Rear Admiral, Rennick said. 29 years. I have read files in this job that would put a senator in the ground. And I put in a request 40 minutes ago for 4 years of your service record, and a computer in Virginia told me no. That happens. It does not happen. Rennick leaned on the desk. It doesn't happen to me, Carter. Not from a 2-star. So I called the number. And a man answered who would not give me his name, and he asked me for a code word I don't have. And when I told him who I was, he said, and I want you to hear this exactly. He said, Sir, if Carter is standing in front of you, then somebody above both of us has already made this decision, and my advice is to say thank you. Ethan looked at the wall. So, Rennick said, say thank you for what? I can't tell you that, sir. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Was it in that valley? Silence. Carter, was it in that valley? Sir, Ethan said, if you order me to answer that, I'm going to sit here and look at you, and then you're going to have to decide what to do about it, and neither one of us has time for that today. Rennick straightened up slowly, and then he did something Ethan didn't expect. He laughed. One breath of it, not a happy sound. 29 years, he said. You know what I've learned? The loud ones tell you everything. The quiet ones tell you nothing. And every time, the quiet one is the one who's been there. He closed the folder. Your father saved 11 men in that snowstorm. Yes, sir. I was one of them. Ethan's head came up. It was the first time all day that anything had moved on his face. Rennick nodded slowly. 2004. I was a lieutenant commander riding in the back of a bird I had no business being in. We went down. It got dark and it got cold, and there was a man on a ridge 400 meters away with a radio calling our position, and none of us could see him, and I remember lying in that snow doing the math on how long I had left. He tapped the folder once with 2 fingers, and then he wasn't calling anymore. Neither of them said anything for a second. I never met your father, Rennick said. I never got to. They flew us out, and I was in a hospital in Germany, and by the time I could stand up, he was already... He stopped. I have been carrying that for 20 years. And this morning, a man walked into my briefing room with that rifle in a case, and I looked at him and I thought, retired Ranger. I looked at him and I thought, single dad. Sir. I looked at Danny Carter's son, Rennick said, and I asked him why he was standing in my room. Ethan let that sit. He'd have liked that, he said finally. Rennick blinked. Excuse me? He'd have thought that was funny, sir. He had a real bad sense of humor about that kind of thing. And Rear Admiral Marcus Rennick put his hand over his mouth and stood there, and it took him a second. Get out of my office, Carter. Yes, sir. And Carter. Ethan stopped at the door. You get your shot, Rennick said. You get your shot, and you get on a plane, and you go home to that girl. That's the whole mission. Are we clear? Clear, sir. 10:15. The armory tent. Doyle was already there when Ethan came in sitting on an ammo crate pretending to clean something that was already clean. You waiting on me? No, sir. Kevin? Doyle set the rag down. Yes, sir. I was waiting on you. Ethan opened the case on the bench and started laying it out. Bolt. Bore guide. A jar of solvent older than the kid watching him. Ask. Sir. You've been chewing on it for 2 hours. Ask it before it gives you an ulcer. Doyle took a breath. Why'd you stop? Ethan's hands didn't slow down. Stop what? Sir, I saw the notebook. I saw what's in it. I've been shooting my whole adult life, and I've never seen a data book like that. You could hand that to a first-year student, and he'd shoot better than I do. Doyle leaned forward. So a guy with that in his pocket walks away at 34. Why? My wife died. Doyle's mouth closed. Sir, You didn't do it. Don't apologize for it. Ethan ran the rod through and drew it back. Sarah, aneurysm. She was 31, and she was standing at the sink, and then she wasn't. There's no story. There's no lesson. It took about 9 seconds. He set the rod down. I was in country when it happened. I got the call at 4 in the morning, and I flew for 30 hours, and my daughter was 3 years old, and when I walked into my mother-in-law's house, she looked at me and said, "Where were you?" Doyle didn't move. 3 years old, Ethan said. That's not an accusation at 3. That's just a question. She wanted to know where I was. That's all. And I stood there in that doorway in my uniform, and I could not answer it. So you quit? I went home, Ethan said. There's a difference. Quitting is when you stop doing the job. I just changed which one. Doyle was quiet for a while. My old man was Rangers, he said. I know. Doyle looked up sharply. How do you know that? You said your dad read the plaque out loud in '98. Only Ranger cohort went through that course in the spring of '98. Ethan reassembled the bolt without looking at it. And you called me sir about 40 times before anybody told you to. That obvious. You've got to tell. When somebody says something stupid, you don't laugh, you look at the floor. Ethan closed the bolt. Army kid, you learned that at a dinner table. Doyle laughed. It surprised him. Sir, can I ask one more? You're going to. 2,400 meters, 90 seconds. Full value wind, 3 thermals. He shook his head. Honest to God. What are the odds? Ethan thought about it. On a good day, he said, with a clean read and a spotter, I trust, and no surprises, maybe 1 in 3. Doyle went white. 1 in 3. On a good day. Sir, that's not a shot. That's a coin flip with extra steps. That's why they've missed twice, Ethan said. You've been trying to make a shot. It's not a shot, it's a budget. You've got 90 seconds, and you've got to spend 80 of them buying certainty and 10 of them shooting. And if you don't have 80, then you don't take it. Sir, if you don't take it, he's gone for 6 years. Then he's gone for 6 years. Ethan looked at him. Kevin, listen to me. The second you decide you have to make the shot, you will miss the shot. Every time. It knows. I don't know how, but it knows. Doyle stared at him. That's the most Ranger thing I've ever heard in my life. My father said it to me in a parking lot when I was 17. Ethan said, right after I missed a deer at 90 yards because I wanted it too much. 11:40. The heat had turned mean. Ethan came around the corner of the tent, and Vance was standing there, not walking past, standing, waiting. You got a minute, Vance said. I've got several. Vance's jaw worked. He was a big man and he'd spent 19 years being the biggest thing in every room, and he clearly had no idea what to do with his hands. "That thing I said, in there." "Which one?" "Don't do that." "I'm not doing anything, Senior Chief. You're doing the thing where you make me say all of it." Vance exhaled hard. "Fine, about your kid. That was I don't do that. That's not a thing I do. I've got two of my own." "I know." "How do you—" "You've got a rubber band on your wrist with a hair tie on it," Ethan said. "That's not yours." Vance looked down at his wrist like it was somebody else's. "My daughter," he said. "She's 9. She put it on me at the airport." "Then we're square." "No, we're not square." Vance's voice cracked on it, and he hated that, and Ethan watched him hate it. "You want to know why I came at you like that, Kellerman? Mike Kellerman. He was in that valley 6 months ago, 22 years, godfather to my kids, and he went in the wadi at 06:04 in the morning." Ethan didn't say anything. "And you walked in today," Vance said, "and in about 4 minutes with a notebook you told me exactly how he died, to the minute. And I've been reading that report for 6 months and I couldn't tell you. And I was there." "Ray?" "So, no. We're not square, because if you'd picked up the phone 2 years ago when Hale called—" Vance stopped himself, but it was out. Ethan looked at him for a long moment. "Say it," he said quietly. "Forget it. No, say it. You've been carrying it since 0800. Put it down." Vance's eyes were red. "If you'd picked up the phone, Mike'd be alive." There it was. The generator hummed. Somewhere, a Humvee went past. "Maybe," Ethan said. Vance's head came up. "That's it. Maybe. What do you want me to tell you, Ray?" "That it's not true. I don't know if it's true. Neither do you, and neither does God." Ethan's voice was very steady. "But I'll tell you what I do know. If I'd picked up that phone 2 years ago, I'd have been on a mountain, and there was a 7-year-old girl in Montana who'd have been in a car with her grandmother finding out on a Tuesday. And Mike Kellerman would maybe be alive. Maybe. And that's the whole math. That's all of it. There's no version where everybody comes home. There's just which door you walk through." He stepped past him, then stopped. "I'm sorry about your friend," Ethan said. "And I'm going to end this in about 18 hours, and after that you can hate me all the way home. I'll sit next to you on the plane." Vance didn't answer. He stood there in the sun for a long time after Ethan was gone. 1400. Rehearsal. They ran the ridgeline 4 times. On the 4th, Ethan stopped it. "Again." Rennick turned. "It's clean." "It's not clean, sir. Watch the 3rd man. Doyle replay." They watched it back. 3rd man in the file, a big kid named Ortega, hesitated for 1.5 seconds at the crest. "He's fine," Vance said. "He's silhouetting." For a second and a half. For a second and a half at 900 meters with a black ridge behind him and a moon coming up at 0450, Ethan said. "That's not a second and a half. That's a muzzle flash." The room went quiet. "Ortega," Ethan said. "Why'd you stop?" "Sir, at the crest. Why'd you stop?" Ortega looked around like he was in trouble. I checked my 6, sir. Habit." "Where'd you learn that?" "Iraq, sir. 2019. "Was it a good habit in Iraq?" "Yes, sir. Saved my ass twice." "Then it's a good habit," Ethan said, "in a place where it works. This isn't that place. On this ridge, your 6 is a cliff. Nothing's coming up a cliff. So for the next 18 hours, that habit tries to kill you." Ortega stared at him. "Sir," he said slowly, I've been doing that for 7 years, and nobody ever caught it." "That's because it never mattered until tonight," Ethan said, again, from the top. They ran it a 5th time. Ortega didn't stop. 1620. Ethan was on a crate behind the tents with a satellite phone that Rennick had handed him without a word, and he was counting time zones on his fingers like an idiot. It rang 4 times. Doyle residence? Margaret. Oh, thank God. Is she up? It's 4 in the morning, Ethan. Is she up? A pause. She's been up since 2. She won't say why. She's sitting at the kitchen table with the dog. Ethan put his hand over his eyes. Put her on. Ethan? Margaret. Please. Shuffling. A chair. And then a small voice very close to the receiver, the way kids hold a phone like it might run away. Dad? Hey, Bug. Where are you? Working. Okay. And she didn't ask the next question, which was worse than if she had. Bug. Yeah. You want to know a secret? Yeah. I've got Grandpa's rifle. A long silence on the line. The one in the closet. That's the one. You said we don't touch that one. You don't touch that one, Ethan said. I'm allowed. I'm very old. She laughed. It was a small laugh, and it went through him like a round. Dad? Yeah? Miss Margaret says you're a hero. Ethan looked at the sky for a second. Miss Margaret's got a big mouth, he said. She said you're going to be on TV. Miss Margaret, Ethan said, is going to get us both in trouble. Lily laughed again. Then she went quiet, and he could hear her breathing, and he knew exactly what was coming, and there was not one thing on earth he could do to stop it. You promised, she said. I know. Mom promised too. Lily, she said she'd be there when I woke up. Her voice was completely flat. 7 years old and flat as a table. And then she wasn't. So, Ethan sat on a crate 7,000 miles away with his hand over his mouth. Bug, he said. Listen, your mom didn't break her promise. Somebody broke it for her. There's a difference, and I need you to know the difference because it's important, and someday you're going to be old enough to understand it, and I don't want you to have it wrong. Silence. Okay, she said. 11 days. 10 now. 10 now. Ethan agreed. Okay. I love you, Bug. Love you too. Bye. Click. 7 years old. She hung up on him. Just done moving on, going to get cereal. Ethan sat there and looked at the phone for about a minute and a half. Then he stood up and turned around, and Vance was standing about 20 feet behind him. Neither one of them said anything. Vance turned and walked away. 1900. Final brief. Rennick stood at the head of the table. Insert at 2200. Ridgeline at 0430. Carter and Doyle break at the hide. Everybody else pushes to the assault line. Trigger is 0540. Carter, your window. 0551 to 0559, Ethan said. 8 minutes when the column breaks. He'll walk from the compound to the vehicle across 90 meters of open ground. I get him in that walk, or I don't get him. And how long is the walk? For a man his age, 88 seconds. Vance looked up. You've timed him. Ethan didn't answer. How? Vance said. How have you timed him? We've had eyes on that compound for 6 weeks. You got here this morning. Senior Chief, Rennick said. No, sir, with respect, this is a fair question. It's a fair question, Ethan agreed. It's just not one I can answer. That's not good enough. Ray. Rennick's voice cut across the room like a blade. Stand down. Vance shut his mouth, but every man at that table had heard it. And every man at that table was now doing the same arithmetic in his head, and none of them liked the answer. Doyle asked it, quietly, because he was the only one who could. Sir, he said, have you seen him before? The hanger waited. Ethan looked at the screen, at the grainy photograph of a man in his 60s with a soft face and reading glasses, a man who looked like somebody's uncle. A man who had made 4 American families answer the door on a Sunday. His name isn't what's on that slide, Ethan said. Rennick's head turned. What? That's the name he's used since 2009. It's not his. Ethan didn't look away from the screen. He was a schoolteacher, mathematics. He taught in Asadabad for 11 years. He's very patient, and he's very good at arithmetic, and he does not miss." "How do you know that?" Vance said. "Because I've read his notebook," Ethan said. Nobody breathed. "You've read his—" "He keeps one, same as mine, same as my father's." Ethan finally turned around. "We took it off a body in 2011, 140 pages, wind temperature, elevation times. And on page 91 in the margin, he'd written a range card for a ridge on the north wall of the Kunar Valley." He let that sit for exactly 2 seconds. "It's the same ridge my father died on," Ethan said, "in November of 2004, and the man on that slide is the only living human being who was on it." The hanger didn't make a sound. Rennick's face had gone gray. "Carter," he said. "Look at me. Look at me." Ethan looked at him. "Is that why you're here?" the Admiral said. And Ethan Carter, retired sergeant widower, father of one holder of a black bar in a file no two-star could open, said the only true thing he had said all day. "No, sir," he said. "I'm here because Hale read me the ages, 2140. The birds were turning on the pad, and nobody could hear anything, and Ethan Carter stood with the case against his leg and let Doyle scream in his ear. 'Sir, you're wearing that—' "What?" "Your jacket. Sir, we've got kit for you." "I know. It's 41 degrees on that ridge at 0400. "Kevin." Ethan zipped it. "This jacket's been on 1100 days of that mountain. It doesn't rustle. Your kit rustles." Doyle opened his mouth, closed it. "That's your dad's jacket," he said. Ethan didn't answer that either. 2200. In the back of the bird, 31 men and 1 civilian, and nobody talking, because there's nothing to say at that point that isn't superstition. Vance found him with the knee at the 10-minute mark. He didn't sit. He crouched the way big men crouch when they don't intend to stay. "Carter." "Senior Chief." "Ortega." "What about him?" "He's 26 and he's got a habit, and you took it off him in one afternoon." Vance's jaw moved. "I've been trying to fix that kid for 2 years. You couldn't fix it because you told him it was wrong," Ethan said. "It's not wrong. It's just wrong here. Men don't give up things that save their life. You have to give them a place to put it down." Vance looked at the deck for a long moment. "That's a hell of a thing to know," he said. "It's not knowledge," Ethan said. "It's just being wrong for 20 years and paying attention." Vance stood. He got 2 steps away and turned back. "That thing I said, about Mike, about the phone. Don't. No, I'm gonna—" "Ray." Ethan looked up at him. "If you say it now, you'll mean it, and then you'll spend the next 6 hours on a ridge thinking about whether you meant it. Say it on the plane home." Vance stared at him. "On the plane home," Ethan said. "I told you I'd sit next to you." Vance nodded once, and he went forward. And every man on that bird who'd been watching that conversation out of the corner of his eye understood at exactly the same moment that the senior chief had just gone to a man he'd humiliated at 0800 and been told to wait his turn. 23. 18. Feet dry. The ridge. Ethan came off last, and it took him 11 seconds to figure out he was in trouble. The limp. He'd known it was there. He'd known it every morning for 4 years, getting out of a truck going up a staircase with a laundry basket. But he hadn't known it here, and there is a difference between a bad knee in Montana and a bad knee at 11,000 feet with a 40-pound rifle and 6 kilometers of climb, and about 40 minutes in, Doyle noticed. "Sir, keep walking. Sir, you're falling behind." "I'm not falling behind, I'm pacing. There's a difference." "Sir." "Kevin, how far ahead is Ortega?" "About 60 meters." "How far ahead is he going to be in 4 hours?" Doyle didn't answer. "He's going to be gassed, and I'm going to be right here," Ethan said. "This is the pace. Learn it." 0115. They'd been climbing for 2 hours, and Doyle had stopped talking, which Ethan took as a good sign until he heard it. The kid's breathing had gone wrong. "Stop," Ethan said. "Sir, I'm fine. Sit down." "Sir." "Sit." Doyle sat. Ethan crouched in front of him and put 2 fingers on the kid's throat and counted, and Doyle let him, and that was the most alarming part. How long? Sir? How long have you been awake? Silence. Kevin? 31 hours, Doyle said. Ethan closed his eyes. Why? I've been reading your notebook, sir. Ethan opened them again. You gave it to me at 1400, and I gave it back at 18, and I copied 109 pages of it by hand in between, Doyle said. In pen, because I'm not allowed to photograph it, and I'm never going to see it again, and I'm not... His voice went. Sir, I'm not going to be the guy who had it in his hands for 4 hours and gave it back. Ethan sat down on the rock across from him. The whole element was moving up the ridge in the dark, and the 2 most important men on that mountain were sitting down. Kevin? Sir. You're going to spot for me in 3 hours. Yes, sir. At 2,400 meters. Yes, sir. And you have been awake for 31 hours because you wanted my father's handwriting. Doyle didn't say anything. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life, Ethan said. And if I were you, I'd have done the same thing, so eat this and drink that, and we're not going to discuss it again. He put a protein bar in the kid's hand. Doyle laughed once wetly, and it echoed, and 8 men down the line turned around. 0240. Halfway. The radio broke squelch twice, which meant hold, which meant somebody up front had seen something. Ethan went flat and waited. 4 minutes. 6. Then Vance's voice, one word so low, it was almost breath. Carter. Ethan came up the line. Vance had his hand out, pointing at nothing at a slope of rock 140 meters across the draw. Tell me what that is. Ethan looked for a long time. That's a hide, he said. Vance's head turned. It's a rock pile. It's a hide. It's about 6 years old. Nobody's used it in 4. How can you possibly? Because rocks don't stack themselves in a rectangle, Ray. And because there's no lichen on the top 3. Ethan's voice had gone very quiet. Somebody moved those, and then the mountain grew back around them everywhere except where a man's forearm went. Nobody moved. How many? Vance said. 1, just 1. There's no second seat. And where's he shooting? Ethan turned his head and looked back the way they'd come, and then up, and then west, and he went very, very still. Carter, give me the map. Carter, where is he shooting? Give me the map. 0251. Ethan lay on his stomach with a red lens and the map and the green notebook, and Vance and Doyle lay on either side of him, and Rennick's voice came through the earpiece from 7 kilometers away, saying report, and nobody answered him for 90 seconds. Sir, Doyle whispered. What are you doing? Backtracking? Backtracking what? His arc. Ethan's finger moved. He's got a hide on that slope. That slope covers the saddle. The saddle covers the only approach to this ridge that isn't a cliff, which means whoever built that hide built it to watch this exact line. That's a coincidence, Vance said. Ray, look at me. Vance looked. 6 months ago, your friend Mike Kellerman came up this mountain, Ethan said. Which way did he come? Silence. Ray? The saddle, Vance said. Which way did the team before him come? The saddle. Which way are we coming right now? Vance's face did something Ethan had never seen a man's face do. We're in his book, Ethan said. 0254. Rennick's voice tight. Carter, talk to me. Sir, request permission to speak plainly. Granted. He's not hiding, Ethan said. He hasn't been hiding for 6 years. He's hurting. There are exactly 3 ways up this wall, and 2 of them are impossible. So every element that has ever come at that compound has walked the saddle, and he has known that, and he has been ranging that saddle since 2019. And the reason you've missed him twice is that he was never the target. He was the fisherman. The radio was silent. Then, are you telling me my men have been walking into a range card? For 6 years, sir. Then why aren't we dead? And that was the question, and Ethan heard the whole element hear it because 11 men were close enough to that radio to make out the words. Because he doesn't shoot the fish, Ethan said. He counts them. 0300. Rennick again, and his voice had changed. Abort criteria, Carter. Give me a number. Sir, you've got a hide on my flank. You want to abort, say the word, I will pull 31 men off that mountain in 11 minutes, and we'll take our chances in 6 years. Ethan didn't answer right away. Doyle turned his head and looked at him, and the look on the kid's face was the look of a man watching another man do arithmetic with his life in it. Sir, Ethan said, the hide is cold. 4 years cold, there's nobody in it. You sure? No. Then what am I supposed to do with that? I'm telling you what I see, sir. 4 years of no forearm on those rocks. That's what I've got. I'm not going to dress it up for you. And if you're wrong, then he shoots me first because I'm the one with the long gun, and he knows exactly what that means, and Doyle takes the rifle and finishes it. Doyle's head came around fast. Sir? Kevin, shut up. Sir, that's not... Kevin. Ethan didn't even look at him. You copied 109 pages by hand. You know the dope. If I go down, you take the gun, you use my numbers, not yours, and you do not think about me. Can you do that? Doyle's jaw was shaking. Yes, sir. Say it like you mean it. Yes, sir. Rennick's voice came back after a long moment. Continue, the Admiral said. 0430, the hide. It took Ethan 9 minutes to build it, and Doyle watched every second of it and did not help because he had not been asked to, and because somewhere around minute 3, he understood he was watching something that was not going to happen again. Sir? Yeah. You're not using the bipod. No. Sir, at 2400. Bipods for a man who trusts the ground. Ethan set the rifle down on a rolled-up jacket and got behind it. This ground's shale. It'll settle a millimeter under recoil. That's 90 centimeters at the target. Doyle stared. 90 centimeters? About 3 feet. From a millimeter. From a millimeter, Ethan said. That's the whole job, Kevin. Everybody thinks it's about the shot. It's about the millimeter. 0441. Doyle got behind the spotting scope and immediately swore. Sir, the moon. I know. It's 40 minutes early. It's not early, it's rising. Moons do that. Ethan's voice didn't move. What's it doing to the ridge behind us? Doyle looked, and his stomach dropped out of him. We're gonna skyline, he said. Sir, at 0510 we are going to be lit. We are. Then we have to move. Move where? Doyle opened his mouth and nothing came out. There's nowhere, Ethan said. That's why the hide's over there and not over here. He worked this out 6 years ago. We're in the only spot on this mountain that makes the shot, and it's the one spot that lights up at 0510, and he knows that. Then why are we here? Because he thinks nobody would be stupid enough to sit here, Ethan said, and today he's wrong. 0502, Rennick. Assault element in position. Trigger is 0540. Carter, confirm. Confirmed. Carter. Sir? Your window. 0551 to 0559. 8 minutes. 8 minutes. And if he doesn't walk, then he doesn't walk, sir. 0510. The moon came up over the ridge and put a light on them like a hand. Doyle didn't breathe for about 4 minutes. Ethan built his firing solution. 0522. Sir? Talk. Temperature's dropped 3 degrees since we set up. Good. Say it out loud every time it moves. Sir, 3 degrees at 2400 is 11 centimeters. Yes, keep talking. Sir, how are you doing that in your head? I'm not, Ethan said. I did it in 1998 in a parking lot 400 times with a man standing over me with a stopwatch, and now I just remember it. 0531. Doyle broke. It happens. It happens to good men, and it happened to the best shooter in the United States Navy at exactly 0531 in the morning, and it came out of him sideways in a whisper with his eye still on the glass. Sir, I have to tell you something. No, you don't. Sir. Kevin, whatever it is, it can wait 9 minutes. It can't. Doyle's voice cracked. 6 months ago, the team that died. I was the alternate. I got pulled 40 hours out for a dental infection. A tooth. He was shaking. 4 guys went in that wadi at 0604, and I was in a chair in Bagram with a tooth, and every single day since then I have, Kevin. Every day I've thought if it was me, if I'd been on that glass instead of, Kevin. The kid stopped. You'd be dead, Ethan said. Silence. What? You'd be dead. That's it. That's the whole answer. You'd have been in that wadi at 0604, and you would have been lit up on a stage, and you would be dead, and your mother would have gotten a car in the driveway, and Mike Kellerman would still be dead. Ethan's eye never left the scope. You didn't survive because you got lucky. You survived because of a tooth. That's not a sin. That's a tooth. Doyle made a sound. Now, Ethan said. Wind. 2 seconds. Sir. Wind Kevin. Doyle wiped his face with the back of his glove, put his eye back on the glass, and said in a voice that was almost steady, 9 left to right, half value at the midpoint. Columns still running. Good man. 0540. The valley came apart. The assault went in, and the radio filled up with the specific music of it, and 6 kilometers away, Ethan Carter did not look at any of it because it wasn't his. Sir, they're in contact. I hear it. Sir, it's not our problem. Wind. 9 to 11 still half. 0548. Columns shivering, Doyle said. Ethan's finger came off the trigger guard. Say that again. The mirage, sir. It's stuttering. Boiling, and then flat, and then boiling. How long? 40 seconds. It's breaking early, Ethan said. Sir, your book says 0551. My book says 0551 plus or minus 11 minutes, Ethan said. And for the first time in 22 hours, something moved in his voice. 206 days, Kevin. The average is a lie. The average never happens. 0549. The column collapsed, and the wind reversed. 0549 and 11 seconds. Doyle. Sir, it's flipped. Right to left. Sir, that's 14. 14 right to left full value. Sir, your whole solution. I know. Sir, your dope is garbage. Every number in your book is. Kevin. Sir, we have to rearrange. We have to start over. We don't have time. Kevin. Doyle stopped. Breathe, Ethan said. Look at me. Doyle looked, and Ethan Carter, with 11 seconds of validity left in 109 pages of handwriting, smiled at him. He walks in 2 minutes, Ethan said, and now I know something I didn't know an hour ago. What? That it breaks early on the cold mornings. Ethan put his eye back down. 206 days, and my father never wrote that because he never sat here at 41 degrees. Now we know. Now it's in the book. Sir, the book doesn't matter if you miss. The book always matters, Ethan said. Somebody's going to sit on this rock in 20 years. 0551. Nothing. Nothing. 0553. Doyle's voice thin. He's not coming. He's coming. 0554. Movement, Doyle said. Door. Sir, I've got sir. Talk. Sir, I've got 2. 0554 and 9 seconds. 2 what? 2 men. Same build, same coat, same glasses, sir. They're identical. They came out shoulder to shoulder, and they're splitting. One's going left of the vehicle, one's going right. Decoy. Which one? Kevin, shut up and watch. Sir, the window closes in 4 minutes. I said watch. 0555. Ethan Carter did not look at their faces. He did not look at their hands. He looked at their feet. Left man, he said. Sir, how? Count his steps. What? Count them out loud, Kevin. Right now. And Doyle, 29 years old at 11,000 feet, with his eye on a piece of glass and his heart coming out of his throat, counted. 1, 2, 3. Cadence. It's even, sir. It's metronomic. It's right man. He's sir. Right man's shuffling. He's not. He's walking like a man, sir. He's walking like a guy walking to a car. Left man is counting his steps, Ethan said. Doyle stopped breathing. He's a mathematician, Ethan said. He taught arithmetic for 11 years, and he's been ranging his own front yard for 6, and he does not walk across 90 meters of open ground without knowing exactly how many meters he's walked. He can't help it. He's been doing it his whole life. Sir, same as me, Ethan said. 0556. Confirm, Ethan said. Sir, if you're wrong. Confirm Kevin. 2 seconds. The longest 2 seconds of Kevin Doyle's life. Confirmed, Doyle said. Left man. Sir confirmed left man is the target. Range. 2406. Wind. 14 right to left full value at the midpoint, and sir, it's easing, it's 12, it's 11. Don't chase it. Sir, it's still dropping. Don't chase it, Kevin. Give me the number you'd bet your mother's house on. Doyle's whole body went still. 11, he said. 0557. Ethan Carter stopped listening to the radio. He stopped listening to the assault 6 kilometers away, and the wind in his ears and the kid breathing beside him. And for about 4 seconds, everything went very quiet the way it had in a parking lot in 1998, with a man standing over him holding a stopwatch saying the same 7 words he'd said 400 times. Don't want it. Wanting it makes you slow. Ethan exhaled half a breath and let the rest sit. 88 seconds of walk. 61 gone. He didn't hold for the number in the book. He held for the number in his hands. The Barrett went off, and it was 32 years old, and it had killed men in a snowstorm to save 11 strangers, one of whom had grown up to be an admiral who would apologize to a single dad in a shipping container in a country that didn't have a name for the base he ran. 3 seconds. 2,406 meters is 3 full seconds. It is long enough to think an entire thought. Every shooter who has ever taken that shot will tell you the same thing for 3 seconds. You are the only person on Earth who knows the answer, and you don't know it yet either. Doyle didn't breathe. Ethan didn't move. And at 5:57 and 41 seconds in the morning, on the left side of a vehicle, 90 meters from a door, a man who had counted his own steps for 61 years stopped counting. Down, Doyle whispered. Sir, he's down. Target is down. Target is. Watch the other one. Sir. Watch the other one, Kevin. 0558. The right-hand man did not run. He did not scream. He did not throw himself flat, and he did not look at the body, and Doyle would think about that for the rest of his life. He turned, and he went to the bed of the truck, and he reached into it. Sir. Doyle's voice went up an octave. Sir. I see him. Sir, that's a PKM. That's a belt fed. He's setting up on the wadi. I see him. Sir, our guys are coming out through. I see him, Kevin. 5:58 and 30 seconds. Sir, we don't have authorization for a second. No. Sir, protocol says, Kevin. Sir, if you fire without, they're in the open, Ethan said, and Doyle stopped. Because down there, 6 kilometers away, 11 Americans were coming out of a hole in the world into 180 meters of ground that was about to be a stage, and one of them was a 26-year-old kid named Ortega, who had a habit he'd given up yesterday afternoon, and one of them was a senior chief with a hair tie on his wrist that his 9-year-old daughter had put there at an airport. Range, Ethan said. Sir, range. 2380. Wind. 11. 11, and it's holding, sir. It's holding. Ethan. Carter did not ask anybody for permission. He had asked for permission exactly once in his life from a man in a parking lot at 17, and the man had said, "It's a loan. Bring it home in one piece," and he had been paying that loan back for 19 years. He shifted 11 centimeters left. He exhaled half, and he fired the second shot at 05:58 and 51 seconds in the morning, 9 seconds before his window closed, without orders, without authorization, and without one single beat of hesitation. 3 seconds. Doyle was making a sound that wasn't a word. The man behind the truck got the belt in and got his hands on the grips and got his shoulder into it and never got to press it. The radio went completely silent. Not quiet. Silent. 31 men and an admiral and a headquarters in Virginia and a satellite and $100 million of equipment, and for 11 full seconds, nobody on that entire net said one word. Then, from 6 kilometers away, from 180 meters of open ground that never became a stage, a voice came up. "Target down." A breath. "Team is safe." "Team is..." And then thin and cracked and not remotely professional. Ortega's voice, 26 years old, from somewhere in the middle of that wadi. "Who took that second shot?" And Ray Vance keyed his mic. That, the senior chief said, was the single dad. 05:59. Ethan Carter took his eye off the scope and looked at nothing for about 4 seconds. Then he said, "Kevin, pack." Doyle didn't move. "Kevin, sir." The kid's voice came out of him in pieces. "Sir, that was sir. Do you understand what you just... Pack. 2380. In 11 seconds. Offer reversal. Sir, that's not a thing. That's not a thing that people... Kevin." Ethan finally turned his head. "In about 90 seconds, everybody in that valley who is still alive is going to start looking for where those 2 shots came from. And there is exactly one place on this mountain they could have come from, and we are lying on it." Doyle's hands started moving. 06:02. The radio came alive all at once, the way it does, everybody talking over everybody. "Sniper element, this is actual report. Actual sniper element, 2 rounds, 2 down. We are packing. Sniper element, say again 2. 2, sir." There was a pause on the net that lasted a long, long time. "Sniper element, who authorized the second round?" Doyle looked up sharply. Ethan reached over and keyed the kid's mic before Doyle's mouth could open. "Actual, this is Carter. Nobody did. 06:03. "Say that again," Rennick said. "Nobody authorized it, sir. I fired it. It's mine." Carter: "Sir, we can do this in about 4 hours in your office, but right now I've got a kid with a spotting scope and a bad knee and 6 kilometers of downhill, so with respect, sniper element is going off net." He clicked off. Doyle stared at him with his mouth open. "Sir," he whispered, "you just hung up on an admiral." "Yep. You just hung up on an admiral." Kevin Walk, 0640. They came off the ridge into the saddle, and Ethan stopped so abruptly that Doyle walked into the back of him. "Sir." Ethan was looking across the draw, at the hide, the rock pile, 6 years old, 4 years cold. "Sir, what?" "Nothing." "Sir, that's not a nothing face." Kevin Walk. But he didn't walk. He stood there for about 11 seconds looking at a stack of rocks in the gray light, and Doyle would remember later that he never actually looked away from it. He just started walking backward. 07:15. Exfil. The birds came in, and the noise ate everything, and 31 men climbed on, and Ethan Carter was the last one aboard again, which nobody noticed at the time, and everybody remembered afterward. Ortega found him at the 2-minute mark. He didn't sit. He didn't crouch. He stood in front of Ethan in the middle of a shaking aircraft with a helmet in his hand and about 9 things in his face at once, and finally he just said it. "You didn't have to take that shot." Ethan looked up. "He was setting up on us," Ortega said. "I saw the muzzle. I was 14 meters into open ground, and I saw the muzzle, sir, and I did the thing where, you know, where you just know. And I stopped. I stopped in the middle of the wadi like an idiot, and I thought about my mom's kitchen. The crew chief was watching. Everybody was watching. And then he just wasn't there, Ortega said. Ethan didn't say anything. Sir, they're gonna crucify you for that shot. Probably. Sir. Ortega. Sir? Did you check your six? Ortega stopped. And then he laughed, one enormous cracked bark of a laugh, and put his hand over his eyes and sat down on the deck, right there in the middle of the aisle. No, sir, he said. No, sir, I did not. Good, Ethan said. 0850, the base that didn't have a name. Ethan came off the ramp, and there were 4 men waiting on the pad who were not wearing rank. Doyle saw them first. Sir, I see them. Sir, who are? Kevin, go find Vance. Sir, go find Vance. The lead man stepped up. 40s, polo shirt, the kind of face you'd forget in an elevator. Mr. Carter? That's me. We're going to need the weapon. Ethan looked at him for about 2 seconds. No, he said. 0851. Mr. Carter, that's not a request. I understand. The weapon and the notebook. And that was when the whole pad went quiet, because 11 operators were still coming off that bird, and every one of them heard the word notebook, and Kevin Doyle stopped walking. You're not taking the notebook, Ethan said. Sir, it's evidentiary. It's my father's. Sir, son, Ethan said, and he said it very gently. Which was worse? I've been where you're standing. I know exactly what you were told on the phone, and I know exactly how much of it was true. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to take the rifle because that's fair, and you're going to write me a receipt with your real name on it. And the notebook stays in my pocket. That's not how this works. It is today. 0852. Doyle came back at a dead run with Vance behind him. Hey! Vance's voice went across that pad like a thrown chair. Hey! Who the hell are you? Senior Chief, this doesn't concern. You're on my pad. Senior Chief. You got a name. The man in the polo shirt didn't answer. That's what I thought, Vance said, and stepped in front of Ethan Carter. All 240 pounds of him. Ray Vance, who 11 hours earlier had shoved this man's rifle case off a table in front of 31 people. Ray, Ethan said quietly. Don't. Nope. Ray. Nope. Vance didn't turn around. You want the gun, you go get a piece of paper from the Admiral, and you bring it to me, and I'll hand it to you myself. Until then, you're gonna stand there and be pleasant. 0854. Senior Chief Vance. The man said, I have been very patient. Give him the rifle. Rennick's voice from 40 meters away, walking fast. Everybody turned. Sir, Vance started. Give him the rifle, Ray. Rennick came up on them, and he was breathing hard, and his eyes were somewhere else entirely. Carter, give him the rifle, not the book. The man in the polo shirt opened his mouth. Not, Rennick said, the book. Sir, my instructions. Your instructions came from a man who wouldn't give me his name at 2 o'clock this morning, and I've spent the last 40 minutes on a secure line finding out who he answers to, and you are going to be very glad you were polite to me just now. Rennick's voice was almost pleasant. The rifle. Receipt. Real name. Go. 0856. The man wrote a receipt. His name was Palmer. He handed it to Ethan, and Ethan read it and folded it once and put it in the pocket with the notebook, and then he did something nobody expected. He put his hand on the case for about a second before he let it go. Mr. Carter, Palmer said quieter. For what it's worth. I know what that is. I know you do, Ethan said. That's why you asked instead of took. Palmer looked at him for a moment. Then he picked up the case and walked away with 32 years of a family's life in his hand, and Kevin Doyle made a sound like he'd been punched. 0910. Rennick's office. The shipping container. The photograph on the wall. The door shut. Sit down. I'm all right, sir. Sit down, Ethan. That stopped him, because it was the first time the Admiral had used his first name. Ethan sat. Rennick stood behind the desk with his hands flat on it and stared at the surface for a while. "Do you know what I've been doing for the last 2 hours?" "No, sir." "Writing your statement." Rennick looked up. "Because in about 9 hours a JAG officer is going to land here and he is going to ask 31 men one question, and the question is who authorized the second engagement." "Nobody did." "I know nobody did." Rennick's voice went up for the first time all day. "That's the problem, Carter. You fired a round from an unregistered weapon as a civilian on a black mission without authorization in a country we're not officially in at a target that was not on the list. Do you understand how many committees that touches? 11 men were in the open, sir." "I know they were." "Then, I know, Ethan." Rennick sat down heavily. "I'm not arguing with you. I'm telling you what's coming." 0916. "What happens to me?" Ethan said. "Nothing good and nothing fast." "Sir, plainly." Rennick rubbed his face. "Best case you're here for 6 weeks giving depositions." Ethan went very still. "6 weeks," he said. "Best case." "Sir, her birthday is in 9 days." "I know when her birthday is. Carter, you've told this base 4 times. Then you understand why 6 weeks isn't a thing that's going to happen." Rennick's head came up slowly. "Say that again." "I said it fine." "Are you telling me," the Admiral said, "that you're going to refuse a lawful order to remain on this base?" "I'm telling you I made a promise." 0918. And the two of them looked at each other across that desk for a long, long moment, a 2-star admiral and a man with no rank at all. And the awful thing was that Rennick understood him completely. "Ethan," he said, "listen to me. If you get on a plane before that JAG lands, they will call it flight. And then it stops being a hearing and starts being a file. And then it doesn't matter what you did on that ridge. It matters what it looks like, and you know exactly how that ends because you've watched it happen to better men than you." Ethan didn't say anything. "I need you to be smart," Rennick said. "I have never asked anybody for this in 29 years, and I'm asking you. Give me 48 hours. "For what?" "To fix it." "Can you fix it?" And Rennick said honestly, "I don't know." 0940. The chow hall. Ethan came in, and it was full, and it went quiet in about 4 seconds the way a room does. He got coffee. He sat down at the end of a table by himself. And then Ortega sat down across from him. And then Doyle. And then a kid named Briggs, who had been laughing the loudest yesterday morning, and then 2 more, and then Vance sat down at the end of that table with his tray, and didn't say anything to anybody, and inside of about 90 seconds, there were 19 men at a table built for 12. Nobody said a word about it. Somebody finally asked him what kind of dog it was. "Mutt," Ethan said. "Shepherd mostly. Some kind of hound in there. He steals 2/3 of the bed." "What's his name?" "Waffles." Briggs put his head down on the table. "Waffles," somebody said. "The most dangerous man in Afghanistan has a dog named Waffles." "She was 4, Ethan said. "You don't get a vote at 4. And the entire table came apart laughing, and it went on too long the way it does when men have been awake for 30 hours and something bad almost happened and didn't. 10:05. Doyle waited until the table cleared. "Sir." "Kevin, I need to ask you something and you're going to get mad." "Ask it." "The hide." Doyle's voice dropped. "The rock pile. In the saddle." Ethan's coffee stopped halfway. "You stopped," Doyle said. "On the way down you stopped, and you stood there for 11 seconds, and I counted, sir, because I count things now apparently, and then you walked backward out of that saddle. You never turned your back on it." Ethan set the coffee down. "Sir, what did you see?" 10:06. "Kevin, how many rocks were in that pile?" Doyle blinked. I didn't. There were 14. "Sir." "There were 14 at 0250 when I called it cold," Ethan said. "And there were 13 at 0640. The chow hall noise went on around them, and Kevin Doyle sat there and felt the floor tilt. "Sir." His voice had gone to nothing. Sir, that means somebody. Somebody moved one. Between 0250 and 0640. Yes, sir, we were on that mountain. Yes. So there was a second. Kevin. Ethan looked at him. There was somebody in that hide. He watched me build my position at 0430. He watched us skyline at 0510. He was there the whole time. Doyle couldn't speak. And he didn't shoot, Ethan said. 10:08. Why? Doyle whispered. And Ethan Carter looked at a wall for a long moment. Because he wanted to see if I could make it, he said. 10:20. Vance caught him outside. Carter? Ray? That thing. Vance shifted his weight. On the plane. You said the plane home. I did. They're not putting you on a plane. Not yet. So I'm saying it now. Vance's jaw worked. What I said about Mike. About you not picking up the phone. That was the worst thing I've ever said to a man, and I've said some things. Ray, let me finish or I'll never do it. He took a breath. I needed it to be somebody's fault. 6 months. I've been sitting in that hangar going through the report looking for a name to put on it. And then you walked in with a notebook, and I finally had one, and I got about 4 minutes of relief out of it before I realized what I'd said. It's all right. It's not all right. My kid put this on my wrist. He held it up, the hair tie. And I stood in a room and made a joke about a dead woman's daughter. Ethan looked at him. You didn't know she was dead. That's not better. Vance's voice cracked all the way through. That's worse, Carter. How do you not see that that's worse? Ray. Vance stopped. You stood in front of me on that pad, Ethan said. That's not. 4 guys with no rank came for my father's rifle, and you put yourself between them and me 11 hours after you shoved it off a table. Ethan's voice was completely even. That's the whole apology. You already made it. You just didn't notice. Vance stood there with his mouth open. Now go to bed, Ethan said. You're 41 and you've been up for 2 days and you look like a bad decision. And Ray Vance laughed until he had to lean on a wall. 1400. Rennick's container. The Jag was inbound. Sit down. Sir, I've been sitting all day. Ethan. He sat. Rennick had a laptop open and his glasses on and a stack of printouts beside him, and he looked 11 years older than he had at breakfast. I've been on the phone since 0900, he said. 14 calls. I called in every marker I've got and about 9 I don't. Sir. Shut up. I'm not finished. He turned the laptop around. Ethan looked at the screen. It was a page. A scanned page. Old paper gone soft at the corners, thousands of lines in a slanted hand pressed hard enough to dent. Ethan stopped breathing. That's page 94, Rennick said quietly. Of your father's data book, photographed in Bagram in November of 2004, 40 hours before he died by a warrant officer doing routine inventory. That's not possible. It's in the file, Ethan. That book's been in a closet for 19 years. They photographed it, Rennick said. They photographed all of it, and then they classified it. And then in 2006, somebody wrote a training annex off of it, and it's been quietly making American snipers better for 18 years, and not one of them has ever known whose handwriting they were reading. 1404. Ethan didn't move. Sir. Yeah. Say that again. Every man in this command, Rennick said, learned to read a thermal column out of a document that started in your father's pocket. Doyle's NATO record. 2140. He shot it off a table that came out of that book. Ethan put his hand over his mouth. 19 years, he said. 19 years. And nobody ever called the family? No. Rennick's voice was flat with something ugly. Because the family's a widow in Georgia, and a kid who joined up 8 months later, and by the time anybody thought about it, the kid had gone into a program where you don't get letters. 1406. That's what I've been doing since 0900, Rennick said. I stopped trying to save you from Jag about 2 hours ago, Because Jag isn't the problem. Then what's the problem? Rennick took his glasses off. The problem, he said, is that at 07:15 this morning, 4 men in polo shirts landed on my pad, 11 minutes after your second round impacted. 11 minutes, Ethan. From Bagram. That's not possible. Ethan's head came up very slowly. They were already in the air, Rennick said. 14:07. Nobody said anything for a while. They knew, Ethan said. They knew before you fired. They knew I was going to take it. They knew you were going to take it. They knew you were going to make it, and they had a team wheels up to collect that weapon before the body hit the ground. Rennick leaned forward. Ethan, who called you at midnight? Hale. Raymond Hale retired in March. The container was very quiet. What? Ethan said. Colonel Raymond Hale retired on the 14th of March, Rennick said. He is on a boat in the Florida Keys. I called him Ethan 90 minutes ago. He picked up on the second ring, and he has no idea who you are, and he has never heard of this mission, and he has not had a secure line in 4 months. 14:09. Ethan Carter sat in a shipping container in a country with no name and felt the entire ground go out from under 19 years. That's not possible, he said. I know his voice. Sir, that man carried my father's casket. I know he did. I've known him since I was 11. I know Ethan. He said he read me the ages. Ethan was up. He didn't remember standing. He read me the roster. He said the youngest one had a 4-month-old. Sir, he read me the ages. Nobody does that. Nobody. And then he stopped, because he heard it. Nobody does that, Ethan said slowly, unless they know exactly what would move me. 14:11. Rennick watched him. There's a car outside your house, Ethan said. He said that at 11:52 at night, before I said yes. Yes. He knew I'd say yes. Yes. Sir, who was that? And Rear Admiral Marcus Rennick, 29 years. 2 stars a man who had lain in the snow in 2004 doing math on how long he had left, said, I don't know. But whoever he was, he knew about your daughter's birthday. He knew about your knee. He knew you'd stopped answering the phone. He put his glasses back on, and he knew that if he said the word Cunard to you, you would get on that plane. 14:12. Ethan sat back down. Sir, he said, there's more. I know there is. There was somebody in that hide. Rennick's head came up. This morning, Ethan said. 14 rocks at 0250. 13 at 0640. Somebody was in that hide the whole time I was building my position, and he had 4 hours to take me, and he didn't. The Admiral didn't say anything for a very long time. Ethan, he said finally, why would a man sit on a rifle for 4 hours and not use it? And Ethan Carter looked at the photograph of the woman on the wall, and he thought about a parking lot in 1998, and a stopwatch and 7 words, and a loan that had never been paid back. Because he wasn't there for me, Ethan said. Then who was he there for? Sir, Ethan said quietly, in 19 years, I have only ever met one other man on this earth who keeps a notebook. The generator hummed outside, and the Admiral went white. 14:13. Rennick didn't say anything for 11 seconds. Ethan counted them. Say the name, the Admiral said. I can't. Ethan. Sir, I can't. That's not me being cute. That's the black bar in my file. That's the thing the man on the phone told you to say thank you for. A man sat on a rifle above my element for 4 hours this morning. Rennick's voice went low and hard. Say the name. Ethan looked at the desk. He's dead, he said. Ethan. He's been dead since 2011, sir. There's a stone. I've stood in front of it. His mother was there. Ethan's hands were flat on his knees and they weren't steady, and he noticed that, and he was furious about it. I carried one corner. I've been carrying that corner for 15 years. What was his name? Reyes, Ethan said. Owen Reyes, Sergeant Major. He was my spotter for 4 years, and he was better at this than I will ever be. And there were 4 men on this earth who could make that shot, sir, and Hale told me 3 of them were dead. Rennick took his glasses off very slowly. Hale didn't tell you anything, he said. Hale's on a boat. 14:15. And Ethan Carter's whole face changed. Oh, he said. What? Oh, that son of a bitch. What? Sir, who else on this planet would know to say that? Ethan was up again. Who else knows what my number is? Who else knows the ages is what gets me. Who else knows? I stopped picking up the phone, and knows about the knee, and knows the exact date of my daughter's birthday. He turned around. He knew, because he was in the hospital hallway when she was born, sir. He drove Sarah to the hospital because I was in a country that doesn't exist. Rennick sat there with his glasses in his hand. You're telling me a dead man called you? I'm telling you a dead man called me and did a Ray Hale impression, and I bought it at 11:47 at night after 2 years of not answering because... Ethan stopped. Because what? Because he's heard Ray Hale, Ethan said quietly. He was standing next to me every time Ray Hale ever talked to me. 14:17. The container was silent. Then why? Rennick said. Sir, why the theater? Why not pick up the phone as himself? Because I'd have hung up. Would you? Ethan didn't answer that for a while. No, he said finally. That's the problem. I'd have gotten on a plane in 9 minutes and I wouldn't have written the note for Margaret and I wouldn't have kissed my daughter, and he knew that too. 14:19. He made me do it right, Ethan said, and something in his voice came apart at the seam. He gave me 11 days of instructions on a grocery list. He gave me the porch. He gave me the hallway. He made me say goodbye like a father before he made me climb like a shooter. Rennick put his glasses back on because he needed something to do with his hands. Ethan, he said, sit down. Sir. Sit down, son. Ethan sat. 14:22. Rennick pulled the laptop back around and typed for a minute and turned it back. Owen Reyes, he said. November 2011. Vehicle-borne device, Nangarhar. Remains unrecoverable. I know what it says. Unrecoverable, Rennick repeated. I know what it says, sir. Then you know it says the same thing yours would have said, Rennick said, if you'd been in the second truck instead of the first. Ethan went very still. How do you know I was in the first truck? Because I've been on the phone for 5 hours, Rennick said. And I'm 2 stars, and I don't get the file, but I get pieces. And one of the pieces is that in November of 2011, 2 men walked away from a black operation in Nangarhar. One of them came home and buried his wife 8 months later and disappeared into Montana. And the other one? Rennick looked at him. The other one, he said, asked to stay. 14:24. Ethan Carter put both hands over his face. He asked to stay, he said. That's what I've got. For 15 years, sir, he's been on that mountain for 15 years. I don't know. His mother buried an empty box. I don't know, Ethan. And Ethan said into his hands, it was the teacher. 14:25. What? The notebook. On page 91. The range card for the ridge. He looked up, and his eyes were red. We took that book off a body in 2011, sir. Owen and me. We read it together on the floor of a safe house at 2 in the morning, and we got to page 91. And we figured out at the same exact second, who had been on that ridge in November of 2004. Rennick didn't breathe. My father, Ethan said, and his. 14:26. His, Corporal Reuben Reyes, 19 years old. He was my dad's spotter. Ethan's voice was almost nothing. That's how Owen and I met, sir. 2 kids at a funeral in Georgia in 2004, sitting in the back row, and nobody introduced us because nobody knew what to say to us, so we introduced ourselves. The generator hummed outside, and neither man said a word. They died on the same ridge on the same morning, Ethan said. And 19 years later, Two boys read a schoolteacher's arithmetic on a floor in the dark and learned his name. "And then you went home?" Rennick said. "And then I went home. And he stayed. And he stayed," Ethan said, "because he didn't have a Sarah, and he didn't have a Lily, and there was nothing on this earth pulling on the other end of him." 1429. Rennick stood up and went to the wall and looked at the photograph of the woman on it for a while. "He couldn't make the shot," the Admiral said. Ethan's head came up. 15 years, Ethan. He had 6 years of range cards on that compound. He had the hide. He had the man's front yard mapped to the meter, and in 6 years he never took it. Rennick turned around. "Why?" "Because Owen was a spotter," Ethan said. "He was Tier 1. He was the best spotter alive, and he was a good shooter, and there is a canyon between those two things at 2,400 meters. Ethan wiped his face with his palm. He knew it. He's known it since he was 24 years old. He could call that wind better than any man breathing, and he could not make the shot, and he sat up there for 15 years knowing it. "So he called you." "He didn't call me sir. He called Ray Hale's voice because he knew I'd hang up on his. And then he sat in a hide above you for 4 hours. Ethan Carter laughed. It was a horrible sound. "No, sir," he said. "He didn't sit in a hide above me. He spotted for me." 1431. Rennick's hand went to the desk. "He was calling my wind," Ethan said. "He was lying in a rock pile 140 meters across a draw with his glass on that valley. And when the column broke at 0549 and every number in my book turned to garbage, sir, there were 2 men on that mountain who knew it was going to happen, and one of them was lying next to me, and the other one was watching me find out. He couldn't help you. He did help me." Ethan's voice cracked all the way down the middle. "He put me there. He put me on the one rock on that mountain that makes the shot. He knew about the moon. He knew we'd skyline at 0510, and he let us because there wasn't a choice. And he had a rifle and 4 hours, and he never fired it because a second muzzle flash on that ridge would have killed us both." 1433. "So he lay there," Rennick said slowly, "and let you take his shot. He lay there for 15 years to give away the only thing he had left," Ethan said. "Yes, sir." 1440. Somebody knocked. "Not now," Rennick barked. "Sir." Doyle's voice through the steel. "Sir, I wouldn't. I swear to God I wouldn't. Sir, it's the pad." Rennick opened the door. Kevin Doyle stood there holding a rifle case. The Barrett. The worn spot on the receiver. The bad epoxy on the stock. "Doyle," Rennick said. "Palmer took that at 0856. "Yes, sir." "How is it in your hands?" "Sir Palmer brought it back." 1441. Ethan came off the chair so fast it went over. "He's on the pad, sir." Doyle was breathing hard like he'd run the whole way because he had. "He landed 9 minutes ago, and he walked straight up to me, and he said, 'Where's Carter?' And I said, 'What did you do?' And he put this in my hands, and he said—" Doyle stopped. "Say it," Ethan said. He said, "Tell him the loan's called in." 1442. Ethan Carter did not move for 4 full seconds. Then he took the case out of Doyle's hands and set it on Rennick's desk and unlatched it. Click, click. The Barrett was in it. Same rifle, same worn steel. And on top of it, tucked against the foam, was a single page of soft, old paper with 2 folds in it. 1443. "Sir," Doyle whispered. "What is that?" Nobody answered him. Ethan picked it up and unfolded it, and Rennick watched his face and would remember it for the rest of his life. It was a data page. Thousands of tiny numbers in a hand nobody in that room had ever seen before. Ranges, times, temperatures. 6 years of a mountain written in a rock pile. And in the margin in pencil and handwriting that had gone shaky 0549. "Breaks early on the cold ones. You'll figure it out." Oh. 1444. Ethan's hand went to his mouth. "He wrote that before," he said. "Sir." "Look at the pencil, Kevin." Ethan turned it around. "It's above the entry. It's in the margin." He wrote that in the dark before I ever got on that rock. He knew my book said 51, and he knew it was going to break at 49, and he wrote me a note, and he couldn't hand it to me." Doyle's whole face collapsed. "He watched," Ethan said. "He lay there and watched me find it out with 11 seconds left, and he had the answer in his hand." 14:45. Rennick was already moving. "Doyle, where's Palmer?" "Pad, sir." "Move." 14:48. Palmer was standing by a helicopter with his hands in his pockets like a man waiting for a bus. "Mr. Carter?" "You brought it back." "I did." "Why?" "Because I was told to." Palmer shrugged. "Same as I was told to take it. I don't get a vote, Mr. Carter. I just get a phone." "Who's on the other end of it?" Palmer looked at him for a second. "Sir, respectfully, you know exactly who's on the other end of it, and I know you know because you went white when I said the word loan and I hadn't even said the rest of it." 14:49. Ethan stepped closer. "Is he alive?" Palmer didn't answer. "Palmer." Ethan's voice was completely level, and it was the most frightening thing on that pad. "I have known you for 6 hours. I have been polite to you. Is he alive?" "Mr. Carter?" "Is he alive?" Palmer looked at Rennick. Rennick said nothing at all. "I have never met him," Palmer said. "I've never seen a photograph. In 11 years I have taken 41 calls from a number that doesn't route, and every single one of them was correct." He paused. 2 hours ago I got the 42nd. It said, and I'm quoting, "Give the boy his father's rifle back and get him on a plane. His daughter's birthday is in 9 days, and he's already missed one." 14:51. Ethan Carter stood on a helicopter pad in a country that didn't exist and put his hand over his eyes. "That's him," he said. "Yes, sir." "That's him. That's Palmer, that's him." "I know, sir." 15 years. Ethan's voice went. 15 years and he sends me a ride home. 14:52. "There's one more thing," Palmer said. "What?" "The Jag isn't landing." Rennick's head snapped around. "What?" "Sir, the JAG was recalled at 13:20. There's no hearing. There's no deposition. As of about an hour ago, the second engagement was pre-authorized under an annex that predates the mission by 6 days, and I have personally seen the paperwork, and I promise you, it is beautiful." "That's not possible," Rennick said. "I've been on the phone all morning." "Sir?" Palmer almost smiled. "You've been on the phone with people who answer phones." 14:54. Rennick stared at him. "Who is he?" the Admiral said. "Sir, I've asked that question exactly once in 11 years, Palmer said, "and the answer I got was, he's the guy who reads the roster." 15:10. The hangar. All 31 of them, and it wasn't a briefing because there was nothing to brief. Rennick stood at the head of the table. "Mr. Carter is leaving in 40 minutes, he said. Nobody said anything. There's not going to be a ceremony. There's not going to be a citation. Nothing that happened on that mountain this morning happened. And in about a year, some of you are going to start wondering if you dreamed it." Rennick's jaw moved. "So this is it. This is the whole thing. Right here, right now, in a hangar." Vance stood up, then Ortega, then Doyle, then Briggs, then 31 men all at once, and the sound their chairs made was like something breaking. 15:11. "Sit down," Ethan said. Nobody sat down. "Guys, sit down." "Nope," Vance said. "Ray." "You gonna make us?" Vance's eyes were wet, and he wasn't hiding it anymore, and that was new. "Because I did the math. Carter, 19 of us have kids. That's 41 children between us in this room, and this morning at 05:58, you had 9 seconds and no authorization, and a guy behind a truck with a belt gun, and you didn't ask anybody for permission." "Ray." 41 kids, Vance said. "That's the number. I counted them last night at 02 in the morning like a lunatic, and then a single dad from Montana took a shot he wasn't allowed to take, and I want you to hear this part. So listen. I'm the one who shoved your rifle off that table. 1513. That's right, Ethan said. That's right. Ray, you asked me a question in that briefing room, and I've thought about it all day. Ethan looked at him. You asked how I caught it without looking. I told you I was listening. That was true, and it wasn't the whole thing. Then what's the whole thing? The whole thing, Ethan said, is that I've been catching things nobody's looking at for 4 years. Cups, bowls, kids off of counters. That's the entire job. And I want every man in this room to hear this because I'm never going to get to say it again. Nobody moved. You laughed at me yesterday because I'm a single dad, Ethan said. I made that shot because I'm a single dad. 1514. The hangar was so quiet you could hear the wind on the roof. Every morning for 4 years. Ethan said, I have gotten up at 5, and I have done 9 things exactly right in a row in order with no sleep, while somebody screamed at me about the wrong color cup. That's the drill, gentlemen. That's the drill. You want to know why I could hold on 11 seconds of a reversal with a kid's voice cracking in my ear? Because I have made a lunch and signed a permission slip and found a shoe and answered a question about death at 6 in the morning on 4 hours of sleep 500 times, and not once did I get to fall apart. Ortega put his hand over his mouth. You laughed at the wrong thing, Ethan said. That's all. 1516. Vance came around the table. He didn't shake his hand. He didn't hug him because that's not what happens. He unhooked the hair tie off his own wrist and held it out. Give that to your kid, he said. Ethan looked at it. Ray, that's your daughter's. Mine's 9, Vance said, and his voice went completely to pieces. Mine's 9 and she's got a mom, and yours is 7, and she's got a dad who came back, and I'd like her to have something from a guy who was wrong about him. So take the damn hair tie, Carter. 1517. Ethan took it. He put it on his wrist, and 31 of the most dangerous men on the face of the earth stood in a hangar and watched a single dad put a 9-year-old's hair tie on his wrist, and not one of them said a word. 1540. The pad. Doyle carried the case out. Ethan let him. Sir. Kevin. I'm going to ask you something, and it's stupid. Ask it. 109 pages. Doyle held up his own notebook. New, cheap, green because he'd found a green one because of course he had. Am I allowed to keep going? Ethan looked at it. Whose handwriting's in it? Yours, sir, and your dad's. Then no, Ethan said. Doyle's face fell about a foot. Kevin, look at me. Ethan tapped the cover. You copied 109 pages of 2 dead men and 1 tired one. That's not a book. That's a record. A book is when you sit on a rock at 41 degrees and find out the average is a lie and you write it down anyway. Sir, page 110, Ethan said. Right now, today, 0549 breaks early on the cold ones. Doyle stared at him. That's not mine, he said. That's yours. It's Owen's, Ethan said. Write his initial next to it. And in 20 years, when some kid asks you who O was, you tell him. 1543. Tell him what, sir? Ethan thought about it for a long moment. That he was the best spotter who ever lived, he said, and he sat in a rock pile for 15 years, so a stranger's kid could have a father. Doyle came to attention. This time, Ethan let him. 1545. Rennick at the ramp. The rotors were turning, and they had to shout. Carter! Sir! The page. Rennick pointed at his chest pocket. The one he left you. They're going to want it. I know. What are you going to do? And Ethan Carter grinned at a rear admiral for the first and only time in his life. They can ask, he said. 1546. Rennick laughed. He put his head back and laughed like a man 20 years younger, and then he grabbed Ethan's hand and held on to it about 4 seconds longer than a handshake. 2004, he shouted. Your father, in the snow. Sir. I never got to say it to him. Ethan stopped. So I'm saying it to you, Rennick shouted. Thank you, for my life, for 20 years of it, For my 3 kids and my wife and every single morning since. Ethan couldn't say anything. And Carter. Sir. When you get home. Rennick's face was wrecked. Tell that little girl an admiral said happy birthday. 1600. Wheels up. 31 men stood on that pad and watched a C-17 climb, and nobody went inside until it was gone, and no one ever wrote a single word of it down. 31 hours later. Bozeman. Ethan came down the ramp into cold air that smelled like pine and jet fuel, with 1 duffel and 1 long case and a hair tie on his wrist, and he had 8 days. 8 days, and he'd made it. He didn't call ahead. He got a truck. He drove. He got to the house at 9:40 at night, and there was a light on in the kitchen, and Margaret Doyle was at the table with a cup of tea. She looked up. She looked at him for about 4 seconds, and then Margaret Doyle, 70 years old, who had buried a husband from Vietnam and a son from Iraq, and had never once cried in front of him, put her hand flat on the table and said, "You're early." "Told you 10? You said 12 outside." "I lied," Ethan said. "It's a habit." And she got up, and she came around that table, and she hit him once in the chest with the side of her fist, and then held onto his jacket for about 11 seconds, and didn't say anything at all. 9:44. "She's asleep," Margaret said. "I know." "Ethan, don't you dare wake that child up. It took me 2 hours." Margaret. "She's been up at 2 in the morning every single night. Every night sitting at that table with that ridiculous dog." Margaret. Ethan put his hand on her shoulder. "Go home." 9:45. He went down the hall, the nightlight shaped like a horse. The sign on the door. He crouched. Bad knee. It hurt, and he was glad it hurt, because it meant he was standing in a hallway in Montana feeling something. Lily was on her side with 1 arm hanging off the mattress. The dog had stolen 2/3 of the bed and had no regrets. "Hey, Bug," he whispered. Nothing. He wasn't going to wake her. He had a rule. He put the hair tie on the nightstand. And he was almost out of the room when she said without opening her eyes in that flat, drugged voice, "Did you get in trouble?" Ethan stopped. "A little," he said. "Okay." "Bug." "Yeah. I'm home." And she opened her eyes. 9:47. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She sat straight up in the dark and looked at him for about 2 seconds like she was checking the math. "You promised," she said. "I did." "You promised." "I promised." And then Lily Carter, 7 years old, launched off that bed from a dead stop and hit her father in the chest hard enough to knock him back onto the carpet, and the dog lost his mind, and Ethan lay on his daughter's floor with his arms around her and his bad knee folded wrong underneath him, and did not move for a very long time. "You smell?" she said into his neck. "I know." "You smell like the airport." "I know, Bug." "Don't go." "I'm not going." 9:49. "Dad?" "Yeah," Miss Margaret said, "you're a hero." Ethan lay there on the floor with his eyes shut. He thought about a man in a rock pile 140 meters across a draw with a pencil and an answer in his hand, and no way to hand it over. 15 years in a country with no name for a stranger's kid, so that a little girl in Montana could knock her father onto a carpet on a Tuesday night. "No, Bug," he said. "I'm not." "Then what are you 950? "Dad," Ethan said. 211 days later, in a valley on the other side of the world, a Navy petty officer named Kevin Doyle lay on a rock at 05:49 in the morning and wrote 4 words in a cheap green notebook. "Breaks early on the cold ones." And underneath it, an initial. O. Ethan Carter never heard from Owen Reyes again. There was no letter, no number that routed no ride home. Every 11th of November for the rest of his life, he set 2 places at the table that nobody sat down at, and every time his daughter asked, he told her the truth that there were 2 men who never came back, and one who never came home, and that the difference between those two things is the whole reason she got to have a father. The Barrett went back into the closet. He never opened it again. Because Ethan Carter was in the end exactly what 31 Navy SEALs laughed at in a hangar in a country that doesn't exist, a man with a bad knee and an old rifle and a hair tie on his wrist, who had made every impossible shot the world ever asked of him, and who had never once, not for a single day, been late to the only mission that mattered. He was a single dad. That was the whole answer. That